Hi everyone, this is Mentz here, playing the Tier 10 German tank destroyer, the Jagdpanzer E-100. Now, most people know this tank because it's a 170mm gun. As you see here, does over 1,000 damage per shot, and its heat round has an insane amount of penetration, and its HE shell does 1,400 damage per shot. So you can do a ton of damage really quick in this thing. Just, you're very large, and it's kind of difficult to play because you're not very fast, and if people get around you or shoot in the sides and rear, you have very weak armor. Now, what a lot of people play this tank wrong is you don't necessarily want to fight at long range in this tank. However, you do want to keep yourself far enough away from the enemy to where you can use your armor to your advantage. From the front, your only real weak spots are the top of your superstructure if they use gold rounds or are a tier 10 tank destroyer, and your lower glacis. Now, at long range, it's harder to hit these areas, and if you can find a little bit of cover or a slight hill, you can hide your lower glacis, and even though you don't have a lot of gun depression to work with because you have a rear mounted gun, you are able to basically become immune to everything except for artillery or if people flank you. Now I got to keep in mind that there's not a lot of people over on the other side. However, we do have that T-57 Centurion heading back, so I'm not too concerned just yet. But instead of getting really close to the enemy to use your high alpha gun and kind of put the fear into them, stay at mid-range and let the enemy kind of hit you, and you don't take much, if any, damage, and you can still get your shots off because the gun isn't terribly inaccurate. You just can't fight halfway across the map because you'll miss quite a few shots, and also at the same time you're not exactly using your armor. Now I'm switching to H, or heat, not HE, just because there's a E-100 over there. And unfortunately, he just spammed, or not spammed, but he shot a heat round through my superstructure there. I'll return that with a heat round of my own. That's one unfortunate thing, is your armor is very good, but people can negate it with premium rounds, so you just have to keep that in mind when you're facing certain tanks like an E-100 that does use premium rounds more so than other tanks. So I'm just gonna move back a little bit and angle slightly in case if this E-100 shoots me again. Which up here, they need more help than they do in the south, so, or not the south, but these two tanks should be able to finish that E5 off and the E100, but they're having a lot of trouble with this T-57 up here, so I'm going to head up here and help these guys out. Surprise! But it's always nice to surprise people like that. Most people don't realize that you can reposition semi-quickly in this. Come on guys, let me get around you. And you can take off a huge chunk of their HP without them really noticing before it's too late. Yeah, keep in mind that there's that T-57 here. Just want to back up to where, okay, I need to help this guy out a little bit. I thought that they'd be fine on the low road there, but I think I was a little wrong in that thought. It'd be nice to get this T-57 out. Trying to flush him out. Come on, take him out. I don't wanna, there we go. Didn't want to waste my shot. I might be hit from the left here, but More importantly, we need to get these guys out, and that IS-3 might, he's probably gonna die, but I want to help these guys with this E-100. Sorry. And you're not gonna make it out of that one alive. But I'm gonna head back to base. There's a Waffle Trigger at their base, so I'd rather not push into him alone. Hopefully he doesn't pop out behind me. That would be very bad for me. There he is. So that Leopard prototype should do well enough to hold him down and get some damage in on him. But I'm still gonna head back to base since we have quite a few enemies pushing on our base. It's just unfortunate that our T-57 and Centurion are that far over. It would be nice if they're back a little bit further. But while this tank is slow, at least it's not as slow as, say, E3 or a T-95, so while it isn't going to win any races, it's fast enough to usually get where you need to be. There's still this Waffle Trigger E-100, so that's why I'm taking a slightly longer approach here, because I don't want to run into an issue of having him nail me, but unfortunately my team is just kind of throwing themselves at the enemy one by one, and at this point the only choice I have is to kind of peek up here and hopefully take one of them out with this PZ-4 behind supporting me. Okay, there's this STB-1. Just let him walk right into my shot. More concerned about this E-75 here. I need to keep him honest. I need to turn... never mind, I don't have a great shot on him. Oh shit, that T-44 was actually very smart. And fuck, that was a bad shot on my part. I should have had him. But I really messed that one up. And unfortunately I'm in a very bad spot now. Just stay back there, PZ-4. Thank you for that. Okay. Now hopefully... ah, shit. There we go. Okay, so we did pull this out. Fortunately, my mistake did not cost us the match here. But in this tank, it's always... the key to it is always keeping the enemies at your front, and some tier 8s and 9s you can kind of let them get a few side shots in, and basically just prevent the enemy from flanking you and getting too close to hit your lower glacis, because otherwise you're not going to survive very long. Now, kind of sucks I missed that shot, but whatever. Unless if we both get ammo racked or something, we're gonna be fine here. Not gonna miss that one. But just goes to show you though, if you can manage your enemies and your distance to them and basically prevent them from flanking you and also from you taking artillery fire, you can do very well in this tank. Yes, it does have its limitations, but as you see here, Ace Tanker Award, I got a steel ball and high caliber. You can do very well in this tank if you kind of think a little bit ahead, because as you see here, it has a ton of firepower, but you just have to manage the enemy more so than focusing on just damage and positioning. It's just seeing where the enemy is and keeping them at places where they can't hit your side armor at a good angle, and also they can't really flank you. More importantly, there wasn't really arty for me to deal with in that match, and you also kind of have to stay arty safe, unless if there's only like a tier 8 arty, and you can kind of get away with that at times. But overall, pretty good match. 6,529 damage, destroyed 4 enemy tanks, did pretty well as far as experience wise. I blocked 4,060 damage. The only real damage I took was against people throwing heat rounds at me, like the E-100, and also I assisted with a little bit. But as far as damaging modules too, since you do have a high caliber gun, oftentimes when you hit specific areas, it does help trying to aim for crew members and modules, because since you have a high caliber gun, you'll often knock them out with one shot, which is very nice. And I think I used one heat round, but as you see here, the penetration, almost 300 millimeters of penetration for AP, that's enough in 90% of your situations you're going to be facing with. And 420 for the heat round is excellent fighting heavily armored tanks frontally. You don't want to use it because often if you're aiming at side armor, you don't need it, A, and B, if you hit any spaced armor, then it's kind of negates using heat. But overall, hard hitting gun, very good penetration. Rate of fire is a little low, and your DPM overall isn't excellent, but it's still good for a tier 10. It's just not at the top of the charts because you have a ton of alpha. Your accuracy 0.35, that's better than I would give this tank personally if I was balancing it, but it's good enough to allow you to fit into that mid-range fighting role that I was pointing out a lot in that last match and now. And 2.7 second aiming time is a little high. That's why for equipment I use a enhanced gun laying drive along with the equipment, the rammer, and the ventilation for your reload time. I use the gun laying drive over optics just because I always try to fight this thing, or I always try to play this thing at mid-range. When I fight this thing, I either try to flank it or get really close and take it out by hitting its lower glacis in between its reloads. But I'd rather have that added aiming speed than optics, because at the range you're good at fighting with this thing in. You don't need that extra view range, and you're going to spot tanks at that range because you're not going to want to fight at 400 meters and so forth like some other TDs, like its other tier 10 German tank destroyer, the Waffle Trager E-100 here, that fights a little further away in most cases. So anyway, thanks for watching my video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out my website, wattguru.com. Hopefully this video kind of helped you get a little bit of insight in the Jagdpanzer E-100, and it's a great TD in my opinion, and the TDs leading up to it are also very good. They're not as flashy as the new German tank destroyers as far as firepower and basically the stats you see on paper. The new German TDs kind of stand out a little bit more, and more people flock to them now, but the old German TDs, the original ones, are still very good, and they're well balanced, so you're not going to experience too many changes in upcoming patches with them because they're pretty well balanced in my opinion. Not always played right, but they're good tanks if you approach them correctly. But anyway, thanks again for watching my video, and hope to see you again.